try and sit up for a little bit? No? All right.
Okay.
All right, Jerry, get up. You want to sit up? All right. I'm going to go and open the door.
So we had to make sure that it was unassisted, that it was only me and only Kerry, that all of the carriers weren't motorized in any way, and that we made all the cutoffs, and that we were in equipment that is open to the public, that wasn't specially made, and that we completed everything in the same way that all of the other athletes that the race was open to completed it.
Cuando me habló de esta carrera, dicen, no, es que esos son más de 300 millas. Yo le digo, no, ¿verdad que ustedes están locas? Ustedes están completamente locas. Pero después cuando la miro con la cara que me pone así como de niña buena, simplemente le sigo la locura.
So we started actually last week or the beginning of the week in Miami, and we did a 70.3 race.
We are very alike and very different. I am a turtle. I am very slow, but I always persevere. And Caryn is also very smart. We had to last for the whole race, so we didn't care if we came in first, second, third, or even last. We just wanted to finish together.
I truly expected the race to be very difficult, but I thought that during the day it was going to be, okay, just slow and steady, get yourself through this, mile per mile. It's not about, speed. You have to save yourself for 3 days. It was nothing like that.
El primer día fue muy complicado para todos. Había mucho frío.
And I had to jump in the water and swim. It was just a mental battle. Every single stroke was a mental battle. So we got to the shore and I stood up. The minute I knew Kerry was safe, my body the adrenaline sort of, the survival mode sort of ended. And I'm not even really sure what happened from there, to be honest. The medic was saying, what's your name? And I said, no, I'm coherent. I know who I am. I know where I am. She was taking my body temperature and it was severely low. And it took about 10 minutes and I got to a point where I was able to walk to the van. And it took probably another 20, 25 minutes in the van for them to get my temperature back up. And then they looked at me and they said, what do you want to do? I said, I don't have a choice. I have to go bike now. I have a 103-mile bike to get through. Let's get dressed, let's do it.
Después vino el estrés de la vía.
We were way behind schedule. And we also kept getting stopped at stoplights. So what would happen is I would have to brake and stop. And then it's not just like a regular bike where you just quickly start up and go. It would take a few, about 30, 40 seconds for me to get my momentum and get going. And then we would hit another light. Then we would make a turn and we'd be on like a huge highway and trucks were just zooming past us and you could feel them pushing you over. And it was really emotionally and mentally stressful. The sun started to go down and we got off the bike. We'd been on the bike for 9 hours plus, the swim and the hypothermia and all of that. And I was like, all right, I got this. I just have to run like 18.5 miles now. I can run that in my sleep, no problem. We get out there, we start running. It's pitch dark. We've got 4 lights on and we still can't see a thing. And then there's sand, thick sand. So I had to get on the back of the carrier and crouch down and kind of push like this. And I was almost in like squat position for 12 miles. So we finished around a little bit after midnight. We finally finished for the first day.
Para mí es complicado porque yo le digo siempre a las personas, bueno, todos ustedes se van a dormir, pero yo trato de que Kerry tome baño, se dé un shower, de que coma algo.
Kerry is my legs, my arms, my external memory. We share the same heart and the same vision of helping people. We are so close. We fight like brother and sister.
Day 2 swim was actually the most physically difficult thing we had to do. I don't understand how a lake has a current like this, but we had to go counterclockwise out, over, and back in. The waves were coming so high, they were coming over my face. I couldn't breathe to the side because the waves would take me over. So I had to take the approach with every time a wave came, I had to dive under the wave, swim under it, come back up. So as I'm swimming out, I'm just thinking, I have to come across again, I have to come across again. And the coming across took about a half hour each time to go about a half-mile swim. It was insane. And then we headed out for a 75-mile bike. And the difference between 103 and 75 mentally was huge. And then it was just hills and more hills. And a lot of people like the up and down because they get down, they get that momentum and they go up. But when I'm with Kerry, I have to be very careful on the down because if I'm not controlled, the cart will swing behind us. So I don't get the benefit of the down. Saturday's run was great. It was a paved street. I was never so happy to see a street. It was, again, 3 loops. So it was really fun because even though a lot of the athletes were finishing, we at least got to interact with them on the loops and we had a lot of fun and that was great. And I guess we finished around 10 o'clock. When you meet Kerry, she just emanates positivity and faith and hope. The life lessons that she's taught me and that we've learned together is something that in this world is really important. So we created the Race to Educate program, where we go to schools and we talk to children about living outside of your comfort zone, living outside of your limits. And we teach them about triathlon, but it's really about life. It's about when 2 people work together, when 10 people work together, 50 people, 100 people, nations work together, you can affect change. It's really inspired the future generation to know that anything is possible. We were staying right at the spot where the 3rd race started. We get down and the race starts and the race director says, Caryn, the water's 66 degrees. I had a bit of a panic, I must say. I was worried, but we had everything in place. We had learned our lesson from Friday, so they kept the van running the whole time I was in the water, and they were able to, keep it really hot. They met me right at the water's edge with water. I had the same thing where I couldn't feel my hands, but at least I kept saying to myself, but you're gonna be okay, but you've been through worse. And the water was flat, so it was actually a fast swim. We got out and we got onto the bike. The first part of the bike starts with an up, and I was like, I can't even believe this. But it was short up, and then we got up that hill, and I couldn't feel my hands, and I just turned to Megan, and I said, Megan, I'm too cold. I'm still too cold, because there was no sun. So we had to stop for a few minutes, about a mile in, and just, get my blood flowing and get me warmed up. But then we got out into the sun, and that made a big difference. It was only 67 miles, so that mentally too was huge. And it was just churning my legs and just saying to myself, don't stop. And when we got off the bike into transition 2 the last time, it was one of the most incredible feelings I've ever had. And we got off the bike, and I knew we only had to run a half marathon, and we had it, and it was a beautiful run. It was a little challenging because there was some sand, and we were in this most beautiful trail. It's a beautiful area, but it was very windy, and it was kind of hard packed sand, so we could move, but it was tree trunks and things, so we had to go, and navigate. So it was a little bit slower than we wanted, but it didn't matter. And then when we approached the finish line, our entire crew was there, and they were flashing lights at us, showing you're here, and that was just, a special moment. And I just kind of put my arm over the front and held Kerry's hand, and we crossed the finish line, and we knew that we were miles ahead of what the world record mileage was, and about 5 hours ahead of the world record time. That was an incredible feeling that we'll never forget. Huge sense of accomplishment, huge sense of gratitude for all the people who made it possible, for our crew who, none of it would have been possible without them, and it was just a special moment.
It is to show the world that together anything is possible, because when you work as a team, you can overcome so much more, because together you can.